Hey, this is your sister and ally, Moi Fung, coming to you with another episode of Moi Talks, Life Beyond the Surface. Conversations intended to empower you to walk in wholeness and true freedom based on the Word of God. Listen in. Hello, everyone. Happy February the 14th. This is your sister and ally, Moi Fung. It is Sunday, February the 14th, as I said, and we're here just celebrating life in general. Today, I have a very special episode. I have two individuals who will be joining me very shortly. You know what? Let me just bring them to the screen. Today, we're going to be talking about love. So I have a co-host who will be joining me, the famous Dr. Vibe. If you can just join me on screen right now.
Hey, Moy, what is up? How you doing?
How are you doing, Dr. Vibe?
I am blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. How are you, Moy?
I am absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know many people are out celebrating Valentine's Day, and
Out where? Out where? You can't go nowhere.
I know, right?
Okay.
You're right. Well, I hope for those of you who are, you should be home.
Yes.
I hope that you're tuning in. It is just 7:03, and here it is the fifth episode of Moi Talks. So here we are. I have this honor. Thank you so much of having Dr. Vibe join me, and we're going to be talking about LOVE. That's one of my favorite topics, and I've been wanting to talk about this stuff for quite some time, and I believe this is the right time to discuss all of what will be discussed today. So please do tune in. I do have a guest that will be joining me. His name is Alex. Alex he is a mentor, one friend, a prolific speaker internationally. And we're doing some great work together. And I think he would really add value to this conversation. So what I would like to do is I want to get him on screen. I want to talk a little bit about love. And then I have some video like all of you. And we're going to have some discussions around those videos. Alex, welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Nice to be here, Moy. I'm so glad that I'm here. And nice to meet Dr. Vibe again. Great job that you're doing.
Thank you.
It's a day to talk about love, and who better to have than Dr. Vibes?
Oh boy, what kind of reputation do I have?
You have a reputation of love. That's good.
All right, I received that.
Yes, Moy, it's nice to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking time away from your beautiful family to come and join us on this very important conversation. I believe that, love is what we all need. The world needs love. I think someone once said that, right, Alex? The world needs love. So yes. Here we are. And, I love the romantic kind of love. I don't know if all of you do, Dr. Vibe, Alex. I love the romantic kind of love. But I think today we're going to talk about love, the love for mankind, the love for our fellow human beings. And I know a lot of you are out there having your wine and your chocolates and the roses and all of this wonderful stuff. And that's all great too. I think that's amazing. But today we want to go a little further. If you know your sister and ally, I like to take things a little bit deeper beyond the surface, right? So here we are. We are at a time that is like no other, really. We all know what happened last year with Mr. Floyd, right? And that sort of shed light to a lot of the things, what it shed light to was the systemic racism that we as a people have been faced with for hundreds of years. Now, today I want to take an opportunity to talk about that, but from the perspective of we're going to get to the core of the issue, right? So I know when we see these things on the media, we see the news and all of this stuff, And you guys could jump in at any time. We see these things on the media, you know, we tend to get all riled up. We get emotionally charged. We become angry. But as God's people, there's a way that we're supposed to behave, and that there's a way that we're supposed to conduct ourselves, and we're not supposed to be easily angered. And I know some of you who are listening right now, you might be thinking, well, how could we not be angry? Of course, you should be angry about the injustice. That I'm not saying that, but be reactive in anger, right? Because what we're ultimately doing is buying into what the media is giving to us. So we're going to talk. I'm going to try to do my best to unravel, you know, this whole thing. And I've asked Alex and Dr. Vi to join me so that we truly have a rich conversation around this. And I hope that all of you who are listening in, that you will glean some insight from all of this. So here we go. Do you have anything to say, Alex and Doctor, before we play the video? There's a video that I'd like to share. Do you have anything to say before we play that video?
I will just start off with what you shared, and more really important what you shared with our audience tonight. And I think one of the things we have to know is many of us were going into conversations with our elbows up, and we need to go into conversations with our elbows down. We have to be able to receive. And a lot of times we're going into things with assumptions. We should go in with love instead of assumptions. So I just want to hold it at that at this present time. It's just an open commentary. Alex?
Yes,
Nice.
I mean, love conquers all. I always believe that love is the key. Years ago, I would struggle with that concept, but over the last 20 years or 23 years or so, I've come to realize that what really could set you apart, certainly not your intelligence or your accolades or your reputation or whatever you have, but your ability to literally demonstrate the love, right? The agape love, the love that God has for us. Many of us, certainly I won't be alive or won't be in God's favor if I was not receiving the love that he talks about. So who am I to hold it back from another? Yes, the picture you mentioned, George Floyd, you see that image in your mind, it tends to elicit anger from us. But until we can come to a place where we can have love and compassion, even for the man whose knee was on his neck, we are no different from the very person who perpetrated the unfortunate incident. So that's how I see life, and that's how I tend to live my life. So I'll be glad to contribute to the conversation.
Thank you so much. I do want to check to make sure that we are live. I feel like it looks a little bit different for me. It feels like I'm still in the backstage, but are we live and everyone could hear? And
we're good.
Yes, we are live. Okay. So that must be me. That must be me. So what I would like to do is, I think maybe some of you are familiar with this video that's about to be played. So there's a young lady. She is in the park and she's walking her dog. And there's a gentleman, African-American gentleman, who's also in the park, and he's bird watching. And he asked her very nicely to put her dog on the leash, and you know, said some things, right, that really displayed what we would call white privilege. And you know, there's a reason why I'm sharing all of this, and I'll go through that. So let's take a look at the video right now, and then we'll stop and have some discussions around that, if that's okay.
I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately. Would you please stop? Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
Can I
me.
take you pictures on the cops?
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African American man. I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my. I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the Ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the Ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, so were you guys able to see that okay, or was it just my video that was breaking up?
No, I saw it.
I saw it fine.
Okay, so something's going on with this internet and it's not good. Okay, so it was breaking up on my end, but I'm glad that you had an opportunity to see that. So I hope that all of you who are watching, hope that you were able to see that very clearly. So here we have it. Dr. Vibe, what are your thoughts on that? Can you just share?
I can relate. I've had incidents like that happen to me during my journey as a Black man, so I can fully relate to that situation. Just to give you a short little relatability, a number of years ago, I was working for an organization in a business office, and I walk into the elevator, next floor up, non-melanated lady walks in the elevator, and she looks at me and she starts holding her purse. She's like holding it against her chest like I'm going to rob her. And I just said, really? And what I did is I pushed a button and got off on the next floor. So unfortunately, incidents like that continue to happen. And I always take the thought process, whatever the situation is, you conduct yourself a level above the situation that you're in. Especially as a Black man, where there's a lot of assumptions, incorrect assumptions made. You can't go wrong if you take the high road.
Absolutely. Alex?
Yes, I mean, a similar story. I've been through that. Over the years, though, I've come to not respond in any way, shape, or form, or anger, or even take it to heart. You know, a similar one was being on the GO train. Where I live, it's far from downtown, so every now and then I have to take the GO train. You know, went in on a nice, beautiful morning, just sat down. The woman was reading the paper, opened the eyes, and when she saw me, grabbed the wallet or the purse, moved it on the other side, and gave me the look like, boy, that was close. You nearly stole my purse. Like, you could see that was what she was thinking in her head. You know, I just might myself. I sat there and continued doing my day. Another time, this was way back. I was on the tarmac. Yes, so waiting for a train to come, right? And a woman walked closer and literally says, "Here's some money for food," right? And I mean, the thought that crossed my mind was immediately I assessed my suit I was wearing and looked at what she was wearing. If we wanted to talk of money, she certainly did not even come close. But you know, I looked at her, I said, "Thanks, but I don't need it." He said, "No, it's okay. You can take it." Remembering it makes me laugh, right? Yeah, I said, "No, it's okay.
Yeah,
you can keep it." So I mean, if that was in a Central Park or whatever, you probably could have gone to that extent in one of the situations. But you know, I don't take it to heart. It's ignorance. That's all I see. In fact, besides the fact is, in addition to it being ignorant on their part, I consider it is my opportunity to demonstrate the love in my heart, because we couldn't even have a conversation, so I couldn't enlighten them if I wanted to, but at least I could have a resolve in my heart that I have no anger or animosity or trying to pay them back in any way, shape, or form.
Yes. Now that's good. And I think, you know, as a mature man, as a man who has, you know, you have great leadership skills, you've been developed over years, and, you know, it's fair to say that you're self-controlled and you're able to sort of use that level of self-control for good, right? So you don't allow it to make you become angry, and you still maintain that level of love. Then there are young people who have not gone through that development process. And as we talk about love, it's so easy for us to to love people that love you back, to love people who love you. But when people blatantly, show you disrespect or blatantly show discrimination towards you, it's not that easy. And I think I think those are some of the things that we want to look at. We want to look at the love of God first and foremost, and what enables us to love beyond. When the scripture says love your neighbor as you, when the scripture says love your enemy, what does that mean? And who is our enemy? Those are the things that I want to look at. Now, I do have another video that I'd like to play. And with that video, because here we have one white female, right? And you can tell that whatever happening inside of her, whatever internal turmoil she might be going through, she exhibited that through the way she behaved through this innocent man who was just going about his business just because of the color of his skin. Now, imagine you have a group of men who are white, who have wealth, who have the same sort of inner, whatever it is that is going on, their hatred towards people of different color, different race. Imagine gravity, imagine the extent of what could be done when you have those individuals getting together, those men with power who are non-Black, right? So let's look at this video, and then we'll also have some discussions around that. And I hope for those of you who are listening, I can't really see, and again, it still looks different, but we are live. I hope that for those of you who are listening are following along. So thank you so much. My producer, Luke, I'm not sure if you can play that video for me.
Talk about race. Why are people protesting? Why are people angry? Slavery ended 150 years ago. The civil rights movement was 60 years ago. Racial discrimination is illegal now. Heck, we even had a Black president. So why are people still upset? We're going to go through history, and we're going to look at some data, and we're going to go quickly so this video doesn't get too long. So hang on. These are two households in America. One is Black, the other is white. Today, the average Black household has 60% of the income of the average white household, but only 1/10 of the household wealth.
Live on your
Why does that
YouTube
matter?
because
Well,
Facebook, I don't know what
helps
happened to
send
your
kids to
Facebook. It
school,
was
helps
disconnected.
launch small businesses,
Pardon?
stabilize loss of
Sorry?
income, and helps
What did you
families
say?
survive
Yeah,
catastrophic
the,
events like divorce or unemployment. What's amazing about this number is that there are lots of extremely wealthy African Americans, movie stars, pop stars, 75% of the NBA, 70% of the NFL, Oprah, Tyler Perry, Ben Carson, Morgan Freeman, and there are a lot of extremely poor white families. Think of Appalachia and other parts of rural America. But even when we factor all that in, the average Black household still has only 1/10 the wealth of the average white household. How did that happen? Well, here we go. What happened after we freed the slaves, after the Civil War ended? 9 states enacted vagrancy laws, making it a crime to not have a job. The law was applied only to Black men. 8 of those states then allowed prisoners, the Black men who'd just been arrested for not having a job, to be hired out to plantation owners with little or no pay going to the prisoners themselves. So that's right. Men who had been freed from the plantations found themselves right back on the plantations. Additional laws prohibited mischief and insulting gestures, which allowed more Black men to be arrested and created a huge market for convict leasing. Working conditions for these leased convicts could be worse than slavery because the plantation owner leasing the Black prisoner had no long-term interest in his well-being. By the turn of the 20th century, every state in the South had mandated racial segregation by law, Jim Crow laws, which supported a social ostracism for Blacks that extended to schools, churches, housing, jobs, restrooms, hotels and restaurants, hospitals, prisons, funeral homes, morgues, and cemeteries. White politicians competed with each other to be more strict and specific on segregation. For example, a law prohibiting Blacks and whites from playing chess together. No interracial chess playing. That might lead to lawn darts. In 1896, the Supreme Court ruled that these Jim Crow laws were perfectly legal because they, quote, reflected customs and traditions and, quote, preserved public peace and good order. These laws stayed in place until 1954, when the idea of separate but equal was struck down in the ruling known as Brown versus Board of Education. So what happened next after Brown? Well, in 1956, the Southern Manifesto was signed by 101 out of 128 Congress members from the South, pledging to maintain Jim Crow by all means possible. 5 states passed nearly 50 new Jim Crow laws after 1954. Private whites-only schools, dubbed segregation academies, popped up all across the South, many of them Christian. But now widespread civil rights protests, combined with anti-war protests that were occasionally becoming violent, inspired the political rise of law and order rhetoric. Richard Nixon became the first candidate to campaign specifically on a platform of law and order. In 1968, 81% of Americans agreed that law and order had broken down in this country, and the majority blamed communists and Negroes who start riots. Let's go back to household wealth. The average black household has 1/10 the wealth of the average white household. Why is that? Because the number one source of intergenerational wealth in America is home ownership. And from the 1930s to well into the 1960s, the federal government enacted policies to actively encourage white families to own homes and discourage black families from doing the same. In 1934, the Federal Housing Administration created a risk rating system to determine which neighborhoods were safe investment for federally backed mortgages. Black neighborhoods were deemed too risky, marked off in maps with red ink, in a practice now known as redlining. After World War II, a boom of new suburban housing was built all over the country, much of it restricted by deed to whites only. In 1948, 40% of new housing developments in Minneapolis, for example, had covenants prohibiting purchase by African Americans. So blacks couldn't live in white neighborhoods and couldn't get federally insured loans for black neighborhoods. Until 1950, the Realtor's Code of Ethics specifically prohibited selling a house in a white neighborhood to a non-white family. You could lose your realtor's license if you helped a black family buy a home in a white neighborhood. In the 1930s, the FHA's underwriting manual said, quote, incompatible racial groups should not be permitted to live in the same communities. The FHA went on to recommend that highways would be a great way to separate black neighborhoods from white neighborhoods. The FHA funded huge white-only suburban housing developments, leaving blacks behind in inner cities. After World War II, the GI Bill provided subsidized mortgages to help millions of men returning from war to buy their first home. While technically eligible for the GI Bill, the way it was administered left 1 million black veterans largely on the outside looking in. In New York and New Jersey, the GI Bill insured more than 67,000 new mortgages. Fewer than 100 of those went for homes purchased by non-whites. In 1947, there were 3,200 mortgages in Mississippi guaranteed by the government for returning veterans. Of the 3,200, only 2 went to black veterans. As a result, white families after the war were able to build home equity, growing wealth for retirement, inheritance, and college education for their kids. One historian has stated that there was no greater instrument for widening an already huge racial gap in post-war America than the GI Bill. And then came the war on drugs. Inner city blacks were extremely vulnerable economically. The overwhelming majority of African Americans in 1970 lacked college degrees and had grown up in fully segregated schools. In the second half of the 20th century, factories and manufacturing jobs moved to the suburbs. Black workers struggled to follow the jobs. They couldn't live in many of the new suburban developments. And as late as 1970, only 28% of black fathers had access to a car. When a white man in Cicero, Illinois, just outside Chicago, sublet an apartment to a black family, the white community rioted, setting fire to the apartment building and smashing windows until the National Guard had to intervene. The result of all of this: in 1970, 70% of African American men had good blue-collar jobs. By 1987, only 28% did. As unemployment skyrocketed in African American communities, so did drug use. As drug use increased, so did crime. A dynamic today that we see playing out in white rural communities hit hard by unemployment and opioid addiction. Throughout the 1970s, white America became increasingly concerned by images of black violence shown on TV and in magazines. Drugs were the problem. Drug dealers and drug users were the enemy. So we decided to treat the drug epidemic not as a health crisis, but as a crisis of criminality, and we militarized our response. During the Reagan-Bush years from 1981 to 1991, how we invested money in anti-drug allocation completely changed. The anti-drug budget for the Department of Defense went from $33 million in 1981 to more than $1 billion in 1991. The Drug Enforcement Agency's budget to fight criminality and drug use went from $86 million to more than $1 billion. Then we came to the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which carried mandatory minimum sentences, much harsher for the distribution of crack cocaine, which was associated with blacks, than powder cocaine, which was associated with whites. Mandated evictions from public housing for any tenant who permitted drug-related criminal activity to occur on or near premises. It eliminated many government benefits, including student loans, for anyone convicted of a drug crime. The 1988 revision set a 5-year minimum sentence for possessing any amount of crack cocaine, even if there was no intent to distribute. Previously, it had been a 1-year maximum sentence for possessing any amount of any drug without the intent to distribute. Now, it might seem like we're picking on Republicans, so now it's time to pick on some Democrats. During the Clinton presidency, funding for public housing was cut by $17 billion. At the same time, the
Thank you so much. So we've just seen that it was a little bit on the lengthy side. I know attention spans are a lot shorter now in 2021, but I hope for those of you who are watching that you were able to really make note of some of the things that were mentioned in that video. I am open it up for Dr. Vibe as well as Alex to share your thoughts on this video, and then we can have a discussion around that. You're on mute, I think.
Alex, do you want to go first?
Sure. You know, interesting video, by the way, interesting recap of what has transpired. I thought that was quite interesting. If you are watching that video without a certain level of spiritual maturity, certainly it can bring a lot of anger. But depending on your level of insight, the real people here that we need to feel sorry for are really those who are perpetuating this kind of injustice and discrimination. That may not go well with some people's ear when they hear that, like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Yeah, right. But if we look at the contrary of it, now, let me say this: the act of love doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything, right? So that's not what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't say, well, I love your neighbor as yourself, and let them do what they want to do. The act of love does not, you know, there's nowhere about love it says put yourself down and let yourself be trampled upon on the floor. No, act of love is in your response. Let it be seasoned. It says, speak the truth in love. In your response, let it be seasoned with love. Let it be seasoned with forgiveness. Let it be seasoned with an open mind. Let it be seasoned with faith and hope and grace and literally what we call the fruit of the Spirit. So that's what I would say. There's nothing in the video that is new, but the guy was good in capturing almost 150 years in a few minutes. The question now is, how do we respond out of love rather than out of hate, right? Martin Luther King set an example for us. Mahatma Gandhi did set an example for us, so it is doable. Nelson Mandela actually also set an example for us, right? Nelson Mandela came out and he started the Truth and Reconciliation, and he was able to, of course, they still have their issues in South Africa, but at least he was able to get a lot of people on the right path. So that's what I'll say. I'll pass it on to Dr. Vibes.
We could spend all night sharing about that video. One of the things that's unfortunate is that for those who live in Canada who look like us, it's the same story.
Absolutely.
Right? Even though we watched an American-based video, yeah, it's the same story. And we're getting to the part of the video, we didn't see it, where there's been mistreatment by the Democratic Party as much as the Republican Party. So we have to realize that if we want to change things, it's up to us.
Yeah.
We cannot put our future in someone else's hands. So we have to start with the loving of ourselves and the loving of each other to take us to a higher, better level. So I'll just leave it at that right now. Just
Yes.
sweet to the point.
Yes, no, thank you so much for that. So let me just make a note there that the video is actually a little bit longer. I think it's about 17 minutes in length, and I didn't want to go too far, or it could have something like that. It was a little bit longer than what we've just played. So what I will do is share below this video. So that I will do. You can go back, for those of you who are watching, to make reference to that video. You can watch it in its entirety. So that is that. So the other thing that you said, oh my goodness, there's just so much that was said. You know, you mentioned, Dr. Vibe, that this is not an American problem only. And I know recent in a conversation, someone said, we have that here living in Canada. It's a little more subtle, but that is the reality of what we live in. Also, you know, in a recent conversation, someone said it's a colonial problem. And of course, we know that's exactly where it's starting from. But I'll go a little bit further than that. And I think I mentioned this briefly earlier, that at the end of the day, you know, what it really boils down to is the condition, the heart of man, right? So here we have, so we have men who are in power, their hearts are not right toward their fellow human being, you know, their fellow black counterpart. Then due to greed and pride, or ego and whatever it is, you know, maybe Alex, you can say a little bit more about that, because I know you do teach very in depth regarding race and how it all started. So maybe you can just share a little bit about that.
So
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So you know, it's what we have to always look at is, I think somebody once said it best in a very short phrase. It says, hurt people, right? So when the issue is first with those who call themselves white supremacists, that's where it starts from. Before you can project hate on somebody, you must already carry it in your heart, which means you're hateful, right? You are hateful, so you overflow. So if anybody needs help, before we even need help, they need help. We have to see it like that. And I'm glad some people are already seeing it like that. My wife got me this book today. Right, I've read so much of this book. I told her about it, and she said, "Well, you gotta read it." So she got it for me, and I've already read some passages in it, and I think the author did a fantastic job in some of the things I've read. Anyway, but that's really the essence. Race, a lot of people don't know this, is a socio-political construct, right? So a group of white people, slave owners in West Virginia in 1776 or thereabout, came together, 1625 actually, came together to say, let's form this group. It's a club. It's like white is a club, right? The Jews were not allowed in the club. The Irish were not. The Italians were not. They had light skin, but they were not considered white. Why? Because they did not have the socio-economic power. So this video, if you see what they've done systematically or systemically, they have kept, social economic power away from black people. They have limited them. They came from war. They gave the white guys funding for houses and held the black people back. And how that now went into unemployment, and we all know what the issue is. As I often say, I think Doctor said it just now, Dr. Vibe, if we focus on building our own economic wealth, this problem will begin to find its place. If every black person or indigenous people get $1 billion, $100 million today, the playing field will start to change, right? So in essence, it's unfortunate that some of this racism began from the church, played a huge part in it. Right, the church that's supposed to preach and stand for love were able to use part of the scriptures to mandate or to support racism and slavery and all those things. So we have a lot of work to do. If we are going to win this war, which we win, in fact, it's won already, but we need to start working together. Again, Dr. Vibe said something, it just kind of slipped through. It says we have to love each other, right?
Mhm.
So yes, we want to love
Yes, yes.
our neighbor, but black people need to come together and love each other, right? Because even those group who formed the white race and the black race, so to speak, it was because they loved each other, right? Although they got it all wrong in the first place, but that's really what it is. So let's all come together and support ourselves. Hopefully the government do what they need to do and the businesses do what they need to do. But if we must survive as a people, we must come together and practice that love within us. And if they are to survive as a people as well, they need to break down the fences of hate and allow love to sift into their heart. Love, it says love conquers all. I don't know what else to say beyond that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much for touching on what Dr. Vibe had said, and you explained it so beautifully. And that's the thing that I think I definitely want to touch on, because even as we talk about life and living life beyond the surface, and any kind of change that we want to see in this world, I have always said, and I will continue to say, right, that any kind of change that we want to see, it begins with us as a person. It begins with that personal responsibility. It begins with our own convictions. And, as you hear Dr. Vibe speak and you hear Alec Ihama speak, don't just let it slide. Don't let it slide by because we hear it so often. Let's love each other and love ourselves. It goes, it's being, take it, within your own family unit, understanding what that truly means. It's taking it, within the community that you're in, as something as simple, you're in a, let's say, a network of people, and let's say someone else. I'm in entrepreneurship. I've been doing it for over 16 years. So I'm constantly building brands and helping individuals do just the same. I never teach the people who I'm mentoring or who I'm helping to build their brands. I never teach them that they have competitors. Never. The reason for that is that we all have something unique to offer the world. It doesn't matter if Dr. Vibe starts something, that is very similar to what I've started. You get what I'm saying? Because what happens is I have something unique to bring to the world, and Dr. Vibe. So there's no competition. And what we need to do is we need to identify, what's really important to us. What are our core values? And if love is the guiding light, the guiding force in everything that we do, that we take that into business, we take that into the company that we work for. So it will, the way we treat everyone else, it is going to be out of love. Another sister business, she's never my competition, because we have something unique to offer the world, and there's something for everybody. And it starts with even that. It starts with, we have our youth. We're talking about Black Lives Matter, and everybody is wearing and using the hashtag and wearing all these hats and all these different things. It's with that inner resolve to really care about Black lives, care about your own people. Stop killing one another. Stop being envious and jealous towards one another, because it may seem like a simple thing that you allow to slide, but you need to take note of those negative emotions that come up within you, and don't ignore them. Truly look at every negative emotion that comes, and ask yourself, where is that coming from? Because one thought leads to something else. And we see it in the corporate world. We see, we see the inequalities, right? Diversity and inclusion is a big thing now.
Mhm.
Corporations are wanting to incorporate this whole diversity and inclusion. They're forced to be seen doing something because of what happened last year with with George Floyd. So personal responsibility, and it's a heart condition. And I can talk about love all day, because I know that God has, he's been showing me over the years just, the root of some of the problems that we see. And oftentimes we let it slip by, oftentimes we let it just slide, but we really need to take that personal responsibility. Alex, do you want to say or share anything, even as it pertains to, let's say, diversity and inclusion? Want to talk a little bit about within the corporation, within the corporate world?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been supporting organizations in that aspect for since 1999, as I say, and they tend to look at it from and a strategic perspective, which they should. But the deeper root is a spiritual issue, right? Which they don't look at it from that perspective. So, as a consultant who goes in, I take that approach. Is one thing to get all the experts to come and train, but it's one thing to train people how to use computer, but you can't train people how to love using that same methodology, if you will. You have to be able to get to people's heart. That video, I know the guy was fast and rushing it, but if they were to look at actual pieces of that video, clips of it, right, see those chains in the neck, around the neck of people, and how they were treated, and their backs and things like that. Let it sink in, right? There's a reason the government put Black History in 1 month. Black history should be part of history because it's history. You teach us history of Asia. You teach us the history of Europe, right? Teach us history of Black in schools. Let people know that there were sheep that left, that carried almost 12, 13 million people out of one continent. And those people now have come to contribute to the development of the West. So the essence is racism is a spiritual issue, more of a spiritual issue than anything. People confuse it for prejudice, and they start to use fancy words like microaggression. Those are just fancy words to say there's hate in your heart. That's really what it is. There's
Absolutely.
no microaggression. What another terminology, unconscious bias. Really? Are you blind? Are you deaf? Are you dumb? Like, there's nothing like that. There's nothing. All those are words. A white fragility, actually. I know it's in this book somewhere, but that's really what it is, right? People are fragile. In fact, let me say this: the other day I was doing a business workshop, and I said, when George Floyd was killed, you won't believe I got an email from some leaders in the organization. I said, oh, there are people had issue with me saying George Floyd was killed. That is not been the case has not been judged. I said, oh my God, really? Like, I should have said, I don't know the word that I should have used, and I actually responded back and say, it's interesting they view it like that. But many of us who saw what happened know that he was killed. There was a knee on his neck and he died, which means he was killed. Whether we judge it or not, whether it's the word that is, it was killed. But that goes to show that people are resistant to any attempt to help them to see where they need to change. And that is not just with racism, right? Defensiveness is in every other areas of life, unfortunately. So anyway, I'll let Dr. Vibe take off from there. But my take is this: racism is a spiritual issue and must be approached from that perspective, even before the strategic attempt to deal with it. First of all, let's look at the heart.
Okay. Well, in lieu of time, I'm going to keep it quick, but I also have a question for Alex because he's been working with organizations in corporate world for many years. How convinced is he that this latest thought process of diversity and inclusion in corporations is a long-lasting thing?
It's going to only be a long-lasting thing for those who are willing to drive it. When I go in from the aspect of sustainability. I have what I call the accountability matrix, right? So once we start the work and all going, we immediately set up what I call accountability matrix. So an example of an accountability matrix or aspect of it is a diversity council that are made up of influential people in the community who you don't pay their salary and they have really nothing to lose. They will tell you the truth and they will make sure. So we often leave an organization with a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, and we partner them with organizations that are bound to hold them accountable. Not one, not two, not three, many. So if we say supplier diversity and say as a business you want to put 10% of your income towards Black businesses, then we partner you with a supplier diversity organization that's what they do, and we make sure you as an organization sign. So we plug them into a network that is bound to hold them. Now, if you do that, chances are that organization will stand firm, because they can have their budget, their performance reviews, their statement, literally. So that's what we do. Some organizations don't go that far though. In fact, most organizations just want you to train. Now, to your point, that training alone is not sustainable, not even close.
Because
right?
that's what my concern is, Alex and Moy, is that I'm not convinced that the majority of companies are committed to this.
Yes, I agree with you.
They are doing it out of convenience.
Yes.
When someone does something out of convenience, there's no heart in it.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. There's not a love
Absolutely.
for change.
No.
So that's where my concern is. Again, I want to see the commitment. And Alex, thank you for sharing that, because again, I just wonder with these organizations, the ones that you're not involved in, how are they accountable? What measurements, and who are judging on those measurements?
Yeah, no, not a lot, not a lot. In fact, Moya and I were on a call when a woman who is part of the diversity group in a massive organization, she was literally lamenting that, I'm going to quote her. She said, "My boss, so that it is seen that she's doing something." So it is seen.
Yeah.
It is seen. So people know she's doing something. She said, let's do this. So when you say let's do this, it's not sustainable. You don't have a strategy. You haven't thought through it. You don't even know where the pain point are. So to your point, yes, let's not rely on them. Let's not, if you are out there listening to this, don't put your hope. In fact, put your hope in no man, black man, woman, nobody, right? Because if you are saying, okay, yes, the needle is moving, but another thing is going to happen just now, and this is no longer the flavor of the month, right? And then everybody kind of move on. Yeah, so that's really where we are. We are not, can I say, we are moving forward, but we are not any way better than we were. If I could say that, it's kind of contradictory, but yeah, we are moving forward, but we are not way better. It's almost like you are moving forward because the wind is blowing, right? So when the wind stops blowing, then you are not moving anymore. Did you really move forward? No, the wind carried you, right? I often believe that in every moment in time, there's a moment in time. So if you watch some movie called Time Travel, where they have time travel, there's this portal that opens and you jump in, and that is really, so there's that portal that just opened, and people are jumping in, and when that portal closes, they'll find themselves exactly where they were. They spend money, they hire people to train, but they're exactly where they were.
Thank you, Alex. What?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I've always said that we can strategize all we want. My Jamaican accent was about to come out. We can strategize all we want.
It didn't come out.
Whatever type of, pardon? It didn't. No, it didn't come out. I'm toning it down today. But so we can strategize all we want. But at the end of the day, if the hearts of the people are not changed, we will continually have the same issue, right? Because if we look at the law in itself is not enough to make someone righteous. So we can check all these boxes and do all these things to say, yes, we've done that. We can even do the audits, and we can facilitate all fancy stuff that you say that we do, right, Alex? But at the end of the day, the hearts of men is not. There is always the bill that will come up, because this is not a new thing. It's not a 2021 thing. It didn't start with Mr. George Floyd. It's something that we've been experiencing this for years, hundreds of years. So here we are, talk about personal responsibility. This is not for the white man, and it's not just for the black man. It's for everybody. We all need, as people, to take that personal responsibility. And we don't need to look at this as a negative thing. We don't need to, as black individuals, we don't need to look at the white men and become angry. Something happened recently where I don't even know if I want to say, because I feel so bad for them, but there's a particular region City in I guess to celebrate Black
East
History Month. What they
Toronto.
did was they did. I'm sorry.
I say East Toronto.
East Toronto. Yes, they did a scavenger hunt to celebrate Black History Month. And some of the action items on there were talk to a Black employee, or like a Caribbean meal or something like that. And, when you look at that, I know many people are angry. And at first I said, oh, this is not acceptable. This is absurd. But, as it went by, my heart began to very sensitive and towards them because really they don't know any better. So I'm saying all of this to say that at the end of the day, we don't have to be angry at the whites for not understanding because they were conditioned to think and behave the way that they do. And so what we need to do is we need to just look at it in a way to say, we're all on a journey. I'm on a journey of growing and becoming a better person. I want to love better, love my children better, be a better neighbor, be a better daughter to my mother. I want to grow and develop and just become my best self. So we can look at it and say that this is what we're doing. We don't have to become all fearful to, I think what you call it, Alex, is the inconvenient truth. We don't want to face these truths. We face the negative emotions that we actually feel. But in order for change to happen, what we have to do is we have to admit that there's an issue. We have to look inside of ourselves and say, listen, yes, I am racist or prejudiced in some way. And that's where change will start. But if we continue kind of glazing over the situation for, just not really, identifying that there's an issue, no change will happen. And again, it starts with personal responsibility.
Yeah, and if you let me throw in that, the truth of the matter is this: the ignorance plays a lot of plays a huge role in all this. But there are a lot of white people that are cut to the heart as they begin to learn the plight of Black people. They are. I mean, somebody said this, and I thought he said it so beautiful. So beautiful. They say always assume the best when you meet people. Like, just assume that there are people that are hardcore. Like you saw them going to the Capitol Hill. Those ones are hardcore. But the regular folks, they were just conditioned, as you said, Moy, and what is learned can be unlearned. I have a friend who's passed on now. He used to get very angry. He was a pharmacist, and people will come to the pharmacy and say, "Where's the pharmacist?" And he owns it, and every time really bugged him. Or he's going to his car park in the evening after work, and a white woman looks back, sees him, and start to run, and he gets angry and stuff. I said, no need for that. If there's an opportunity to educate the man or woman inside your pharmacy, I say, actually, I'm the pharmacy. And the parents go, really? Like you people have pharmacy in Africa? I thought you guys use herbs, right? That's what it says. People tell him. And he owns many pharmacy, right? I say, actually, yes, there are areas I would take the time to say, yes, there are areas we use herbs, just like you're not having naturopath here in Canada, right? Yeah, there are people doing herbs here in Canada. And by the way, I'm a pharmacist, and yes, I went to school in Africa, but I have my degree from York, and I have this. And by the way, the medication you just came to ask for, herbs are part of it. Like, I'm just saying, like, let people, one thought can save a soul. One thought can save a person. So, but no, they should know better. Like, it's racism. Yeah, but how is that really helping us? Like, let's ask some critical question. How is that really helping us? If there's one person that you can influence, then why not do that? Take the time. It's like parenting. Some of us like to scream at the kids, get up, do this, don't do that. Take the time and say, honey, when you do this is what happens. Do you know when you do that, this is what happens? The same way, we need to approach some of these people. Again, like I said, there are hardcore people out there. But generally, people are just people. They just need some form of help. My take on it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. That is very important. Some very key points there. Dr. Vibe, let's hear what you have to say, because we're about the 5-minute mark.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is this conversation was based on love. And I'm going to give 4 questions to your viewers about love. Is that okay?
Perfect. That is absolutely okay. Thank you.
Okay. So my first question to the viewers out there is this. Who is the hardest person for you to love right now? And to keep in line of what Moy would probably follow up, because she taught me so well, what would keep you from praying for this person each day this week? My next question is, how do you respond to others when you're criticized? Are you aggressive or do you respond in love? Next up, part of love is self-care, and I mentioned it earlier on about we need to love ourselves. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being poor and 10 being extremely well, how would you rate your level of self-care right now? And my final question is, are you in position to love others well? Those are my questions.
Wow, those are some deep questions, Dr. Vibe.
Well, I went to the Moy Funk
it.
Institute of Training.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for that. And for those of you who are listening, I hope you made note of those questions. And I hope that you truly will look at them, take some time, don't rush through them. I'm a person, I like to go for long walks. So I walk for sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. Allow it to really, those questions just take some time to answer them. Because again, as I had mentioned, if we need to see change in this world, as cliche as it may seem, we have to be that change. And change begins with us identifying that there are things that they require change in order for us to change. Dr. Alex. Well, you are a doctor. Alex, let's hear from you for your final words as we close off.
Final word, I think Dr. Vibe said it very well, but my final word is this: love your neighbor as yourself. You can't give what you don't have. So, ensure that you are in love with yourself. Ensure that you've come to a good understanding of love by yourself, with yourself, for yourself, so that in all your pursuits, in all your endeavors, it is reflective. In most cases, it's not what you say, it's who you are and what people see. You can do it. You were raised up for such a time as this to be the light in your generation. You are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. So you are the hero people are waiting for. You are the Mahatma Gandhi and the Martin Luther King and the Mother Teresa. I strongly believe that. It's how I try to live my life, and I wish you well.
Can I just
Thank
add
you
one?
so much.
Can I add one just quick thing onto that? A few quick things. I'm a firm believer that everyone that's watching this live on replay, you were not born to lose, you were born to win.
Yeah.
Also, there's a term that you hear a lot, the winners and losers. I do not believe in that. There are winners and there are people who don't know how to win yet. And finally, remember to give yourselves grace.
Yeah.
Love, faith, and respect,
Yes.
and remember to give yourselves grace.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Amen. Yes. Remember to give yourself grace and give others grace.
Yes,
Right. So this is how. Yes. Yes. So thank you. You guys have been amazing. Thank you, Alex, Ihama, the great Alex. It's such an honor to have you to share time with me on this Sunday evening, Valentine's Day. I see you're wearing red, and you could be hanging out with your wife and your children. But here you are, having conversation on Moy Talk. So thank you so much for all your time and your dedication. And Dr. No, big up yourself. You've been amazing, just an amazing friend and mentor. So thank you so much. And for all of you who are watching, I really hope that you were able to glean some information. And as we have all discussed today, that education is the key. It's not just expecting other people to know about us, but it's for us to also know about ourselves. Because I think it's knowing about who you are that will allow you you to have an appreciation, not just for self, but for other people, other Black people, other white people, human beings, mankind, So here we are. We're at the close of episode 5. It's been amazing. I had initially had a table setting to have dinner and all of that stuff. Episode 5, yes. And I thought, you know what? Couldn't eat in front of my guests without them having something to eat. So I will be having dinner shortly, but thank you guys so much. I love each and every one of you who are watching. God bless you. And tune in again for Moy Talks on episode 6. I believe it's happening on February the 28th. God bless you. Thank you.
All right. God bless you all. Bye.
Keep the faith.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, remember, life is way too short to be average. So don't shrink back. Don't shrink back, Masé, and compete with no one other than yourself. Be excellent at whatever you do. Enough love from your sister and ally, Moy Fang.